Otto Suwen's internal affairs struggle line 2. I see, I understand. I'll remember that teacher. Please do so. Well then, go back directly, please. Bitterly smiling to Amelia's vaguely mischievous reply, Otto split from Subaru and the others and started walking towards the city of water. It was an exchange on the way back, which doubled as an evaluation meeting after the negotiations at the Muse Company had ended up being cancelled. Having received Anastasia's invitation, the whole Amelia camp had arrived to Pristella. Otto had proposed to split with his fellows, such as Subaru and Garfield, and go alone to do something else. As his ostensible reason, he said that he would do it to keep up acquaintance, as the internal affairs minister of his camp, with an influential person of the city. And, in fact, he did intend to fulfill such role, but his primordial reason was not that. Subtly breathing, Otto directed his gaze at the bag he held in his own hands. It was a handbag with nothing extraordinary to it, but the matter was its content. Inside the bag was one book, of which, furthermore, most pages were burned to lumps of ash. This book's name was the Book of Wisdom. Accurately speaking, that thing used to be the Book of Wisdom. A big part of its binding was charred, and not a single page could be used to consult its contents. Since it was in a condition that made it more accurate to call it a bunch of burnt paper rather than to call it a book, the thoughts of the person who carried it around were unclear. Truthfully, even Otto's reason appealed to him to dispose of such book stub at once. But his instinct, too, appealed to him to not do so. Trapped between both his own reason and instinct, Otto took a deep, deep breath. When he thought about what was about to come, he felt pretty heavy-hearted. Because, in any case from this, Otto would try to, ironically, restore the book that he knew well it was better to dispose of. The name of the Master Restorer Darts was a famous name in his field. He was someone who repaired broken and damaged items for a living, and he was said to use an extremely rare magic, called restoration magic, that could return whatever object to what it was in the beginning. There were a lot of artisans who used their techniques to repair works of art such as pictures. But restoration magic seemed to be something he had devised all on his own, and some rumors stated he had turned even a meteor back to its original state. Where Darts was located was in the Watergate city Pristella. Therefore, relying on the rumors about him, Otto had brought the mysterious book stub to this city of water. If the mysterious script were to be repaired by his hand, then maybe the book's content could be inspected. However, only restoring the book had the risk of the content being unreadable. Therefore, in order to restore even the item's original function, the Master Restorer Dart's power was necessary. Rumors had it that he was someone hard to please, but he would have to find a way to coax him. Doing so, repairing the Book of Wisdom and verifying its contents was absolutely necessary. Only if he could do that would Otto Suwen be able to accept his current position. So would be the necessary ceremony for him to establish himself as the Amelia camp's internal affairs minister. 2. A story from those times, when the topic of the trip to Pristella had not even come out yet. It's this late at night, and you're still working. When he was suddenly addressed from behind, Otto turned back. The time was late night. The place was the dining room of the Roswell estate. It was that one time of the day, so late even plants were said to be sleeping. But for one part of the mansion's residents, it was just the beginning of their active hours. Otto was from that part, and from that same part was also the girl who stood behind him. I see you were awake too, Miss Ram. Of course I'd be. I better lighten and support Master Roswell's workload, even if it's just a little, or else he'll just be overexerting himself. Seeing Ram holding her own arms as she spoke, Otto bitterly smiled. Habitually, this girl in maid clothes would affect a disposition that was sloppy, frivolous, and indolent towards work. However, she was actually the one who devoted herself to the mansion's owner with more passion than anybody else. Although it was nothing worthy of praise, there were a lot of times in which Otto, immersed in his paperwork, had seen the sun rise from his room. Just like in his case, it was late when the lights in Ram's own room disappeared. He knew that was a vestige of the fact that she took her work to her room and kept helping her master. Of course, were he to point that out, her reaction would be instantaneous. Disgusting. What, I have not said anything. Why have you looked at me when saying that? Stop talking so loudly. It would be bothersome if you happen to wake Lady Amelia or Petra up. If you want a diversion, you may go hit Barusu's room's door to your heart's content. I will not do such a malicious thing. Miss Ram, will you too drink cough? Shrugging his shoulders at Ram's curses, Otto shook his own cup and showed her its content. The cup's content was cough, a simple beverage made out of parched beans that were made into powder and then dissolved in hot water. Its flavor was controlled by the quality of the beans and the way it was brewed, but Otto was not too mindful of the flavor. His main objective when drinking cough was its trait as the most effective beverage when it came to fighting off sleepiness. During his daily life as a merchant, which made up a considerable part of his whole life, his body had gotten totally used to a life of not sleeping. In business, things such as driving a dragon carriage while ignoring sleep in a match against speed were the order of the day. On those days, Cough's power was definitely indispensable to open his dropped eyelids by sheer force, making it some sort of comrade-in-arms to Otto. Staring at Otto's comrade-in-arms, "Ha!" Ram snorted. "I don't need it. I don't even know how you can drink such muddy water." That's an expression I've heard a lot, but this is the first time I've met someone who actually uses it. Seeing Otto drink the cough with a bitter smile, Ram said nothing. Instead, she passed by Otto's side, took tea leaves out of the cupboard, and started brewing her own portion of tea. The flavor being controlled by the way it was brewed happened equally for both tea and cough. In that respect, the way Ram brewed tea was so polished it could have the previous remark taken back, and even Otto could clearly tell the difference in flavor. Then Ram poured tea on a laid-out cup and took a glance at Otto. "If you throw out that muddy water in your hands, I'll allow you to drink Ram's tea." A charming offer. Although I do have objections, I would like to make about it being treated like muddy water. It's just muddy water to me. Even Otto's clothes are green, and you also sip muddy water just like weed. "I understand. Look, I have shed the muddy water. Brew some tea for me, please." Giving in to her sharp tongue, Otto went to the sink and threw his comrade-in-arms out. Although his shed comrade-in-arms' resentment could be heard from the drainage, Otto covered his ears to hear absolutely nothing. As she watched that from the side, Ram pushed the steaming cup towards Otto. "Sip it." "Don't say it like that." Receiving such a rather Ram-like offer, Otto accepted the tea with stiff cheeks. When he put it on his mouth, a sweet fragrance went through his nasal fosse. Just as expected, the way Ram brewed it had something different about it. And "Seems like your wariness of Master Roswal still hasn't faded very much." He was made to realize that the flavor of the tea was probably not the only thing that had something different about it. When he heard those words, Otto swallowed the tea that was in his mouth. It was not even anything particularly surprising. He could be sure that it was no mere coincidence that they happened to meet here this night. More than anything, since she was Ram, she would have already predicted Otto's answer. "I think it is natural. Can one be not wary of the Margrave? Someone with a magnanimity so big it makes one shiver and a surpassing softness wouldn't do it. A person who possesses such things, I have one close to me, and to be honest, it makes my head hurt." Ram's accurate metaphor made Otto's head hurt in a non-metaphorical way. It was difficult to forgive the incident that, approximately 1 year ago, Roswal had perpetrated towards his camp, population, and generally everyone who was related to him. It was even more pertinent to reword it as an unforgivable felony. And despite everything, Subaru and Amelia had forgiven Roswal's felony. It was not as if they had actually forgiven him in form, but their treatment of him was as good as an acquittal. Of course, they could not afford to lose the position Roswal had as a Margrave for the royal election, though. Even without that, I am afraid it looks like the conclusion would be the same. Self-interest is not all that makes people move. To live thinking that, just because it is so for oneself, it must be so for everyone else is proof of a poor mind, Otto. That is an amazing argument, but what if this was an affair without relationship to the Margrave? It's unknown what the forgiving side feels. Barusu doesn't matter, but I wonder if Lady Amelia is fine with that. The purity of Ram's nonchalant attitude left him without any more words to speak. In any case, Otto would not be able to become as defenseless as Subaru, Amelia, and the rest were. He could not afford to, he thought too. It has been roughly a year since I started helping out with the work here at the mansion, has it not? I can no longer help my shoulders growing stiff with how much I am straining my mind. Why is it that, even though I have a roof, a bed, and a room, my sleep hours have decreased more than back when I was a traveling merchant? Whether he did peddling or worked under somebody else, wherever he was and whatever he did, Otto was fated to be burdened with trouble. It was, probably, Otto's older brother who had said that. At that time, it was just something he laughed off, but it had become his circumstances, at which he was pretty unable to laugh. Yet, while aware of it, Otto dared to think of laughing. If it was trouble, he would not be able to avoid burdening himself with anyway. At least he would bear them all as he laughed. I like my current life just as it is, even if it is an environment in which, for example, my sleep hours get awfully ground, or I am made to treat my years-long comrade in arms as muddy water. All Ram did was to make an offer. Otto was the one who stabbed his comrade in arms from behind. Therefore, I shall make every effort that is possible for me to protect this environment. Without following Ram's jest, Otto drank up the cup's content and spoke. Directly receiving that look of Otto's from the front, Ram cast her light pink eyes down. Otto will protect by doubting. Then, Ram shall protect the present by believing. We're dividing roles. Ram will be in charge of believing, Otto will be in charge of doubting like a bad person. At being called a bad person, Otto experienced an upsetting feeling. Still, would even such assessment be appropriate if he were to compare himself to the people who were cursorily pictured in his head? Even so, I think there are too many people in charge of believing in this mansion. And that's why Otto is necessary. The right person in the right place. The impression of usefulness that expression gives is way too strong. Let's leave it at the level of a bucket for a roof leak. Lady Amelia will be angered. You know, she has a strangely strong sense of gratitude towards buckets. Listening to Otto's reply, Ram collected the empty cup and took it to the kitchen. Otto scratched his head as he stared at her small back. The talk was over, said her back. Slight caution or warning. Or was it just trying to convey, I'm watching you, like Ram would do? Otto! Suddenly, a voice addressed Otto as he was about to take his leave from the dining room. When he turned back, Ram stood still at the kitchen's entrance, looking at him with narrowed eyes. What would have to happen for you to feel like forgiving Master Roswell? Forgiving him is probably something I cannot do, but Ram's light pink eyes demanded the continuation of the words Otto had cut. Having resumed his advance, Otto put his hand on the dining room's door, and as he took a step forward to the hall outside, answered, If only I had the chance, maybe I could think of dispelling my distrust. No matter what happened, Otto would probably never forgive Roswell. He did just that. Just that was done to him. Therefore, it was a reasonable retribution. Deeds would always jump back at oneself. Roswell's current hardships were the result of his own deeds. Because he thought that, Otto felt no pity for him. But it was just as he had answered Ram. If he had the chance, maybe he would dispel his distrust. And probably because he himself wanted that chance, he had gotten involved in this disloyal act. I see. Now this is a big deal, you. In the dim store's interior, a tall, spindly man took a look at the remains of the mysterious script that was brought to him and spoke while touching his well-ordered mustache. Inside the store from which had already been completely evacuated. Do you understand? Otto rose his voice at the words of the man, Master Restorer Darts. Its condition is so ruined it makes me feel apologetic as the one showing it, though. I've been in this path for so long. I know an article that's got history behind it when I see one, you know. Even with my long experience as a restorer, things with charm this deep are seldom met by the eye. Despite his peculiar expressions, Dart's eyes shone, and anyone who saw him could tell that he was enthusiastic. As Otto felt alleviation at having apparently overcome the first obstacle, then, do you think you could fix it? Restoring it is a work I feel as distant as returning a collapsed sandcastle to its original state. If the article is like this, returning it to its original state is gonna be a legendary exploit. I can do it. NGH, so I may ask for it. No problem, but may I say something? Nodding to the eager Otto, Darts closed one eye while fiddling with his mustache, leaving the time it'll take to restore it and the remuneration for later. If you don't mind, May I ask what you intend to use this for? I am sorry for you, Mr. Darts, who will be repairing it from now on. But once I am done verifying the book's content, I intend to burn it up without leaving a single fragment. HMPH, an honest man you are. Will your goal be fulfilled with that? With no signs of displeasure, Darts stared at the mysterious script on the desk and asked. To those words, "That is right," nodded Otto with his shoulders shrugged. If possible, instead of being always in charge of doubting people, I want to have the relief of knowing at least my fellows will not stab me in the back. And it would be nice if such relief helped my stomach too. That's good, I'll take it. However, before I do my job, I know, that is why I brought it. Before Dart's assenting eyes, Otto took an alcohol bottle out of his handbag and put it on the desk. The master restorer Darts was famous for his fondness of rare articles and alcohol, and also for drinking enough to end up full before accepting a job. Allow me to keep you company. If it is for my mind to be at peace, I am fine with it. Readily pushing the alcohol bottle onto the desk, Otto showed his teeth as he smiled. Being that smile directed at him, Darts, too, formed a terribly malicious smile on his face. The necessary ceremony for Otto Suwen to become the actual internal affairs minister of the Amelia camp. As if preparing for that ceremony, this day, Otto drank alcohol until he was full along with Darts. And the next morning, he returned to the Water Plumage Inn in a drunken condition. There was one act in which Beatrice saw his intoxicated form and feared like a hero, but that was a story different from the one now. This was one of the problems held by the always troubled Otto.